Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2, adjourn to closed session. Okay, I'd like to reconvene to open session. Agenda item 5, report on action. There was nothing to report on closed session. Item 6 is approval of agenda. We're probably going to move some of these things let's move item 6 after 7 and just start with item 7. Is that okay? We all will put the agenda later. 6. I can put item 7.
Don't we need to approve the agenda before we go to an item after?
Let's approve moving around and then approve that and then
Okay.
go to 7.
What we would like to move up is item 11. And so let's move item 11, and then we also have a financing authority meeting. So let's move item 11 up to just after 7. Is that okay?
Is the financing meeting a separate agenda item, or is it within the 11?
Don't we close?
It starts at 6:30.
Correct.
And then we open up the
And it has everything to do with item 11.
Got it. Okay. So,
Is that okay?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to item 7. Open time on the public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters within the district's jurisdiction may do so. Each speaker is limited to about 3 minutes. The board may not take action or discuss items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements or questions by members of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up. So would any member of the public like to make a comment? Yes, please introduce yourself and do anywhere you want. All right, and hopefully what town you're from.
Laura Ethel, I live in Larkspur. I'm also director of COST, the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. And we reviewed your Prop 218 notice, and we had no issues. Congratulations. And I would also like to point out, by the way, that Doug Kelly, who's on the board of COST, did not participate in our deliberations because he would be, if he had done so, he would be commenting on his own decision making. And
That unknown member of our board.
I really didn't know what they were doing.
he didn't know what we were doing. That's right.
thank you.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
That's good to know. And thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who would like to make a comment? Very good, hearing none. Item is closed. I'd now like to move on to item 11, consideration of adopting resolution 19-1557, approving, authorizing, and directing execution of certain financing documents and directing certain related actions in connection with the financing of up to $37 million to be used to finance acquisitions and improvements to the district's facilities. Mr. Howard.
Good. Yes, we're asking you today to consider adopting a resolution approving and authorizing and directing execution of certain financing documents, related actions in connection to financing up to $37 million to be used to finance A, approximately 50% of the property purchased at 1111 Anderson Drive, B, to remediate contaminated soil at the Larkspur Landing Circle property, and C, various capital improvements to the district's wastewater facility. So this resolution will function together with a separate action by the Ross Valley Public Financing Authority to complete a bond sale not exceeding $37 million in early July 2019.
Thank you. Any initial comments by the board, or should we get, what this involves is all of this paper that we got. Piles of paper.
President Gaffney, I can take an opportunity to introduce the consultants in the audience if you'd like.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Sean Tierney with Hawkins Delafield is representing bond counsel for the district. Rob Larkins is here with Raymond James, thank you, sorry, right on the tip of my tongue. And Jim Gibbs and Martha Boyevich are here as financial advisors.
Financial advisors,
Yes,
okay.
very nice.
So how do we want to
Very
proceed
helpful.
on this?
Well, I think that there's the Ross Valley Public Financing Authority activities as well as the Board of Director activities. The Ross Valley Public Financing Authority activities have been publicly noticed to commence at 6:30 p.m. So you have a few minutes to...
Anytime after.
Anytime after?
6:30.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's related to this item. So basically, we have a joint powers agency which we set up, we already set it up for one bond, the Public Financing Authority. And that allows us to issue revenue bonds. And we've selected a financial advisor, the Sperry firm. And on our previous sale, we had the Raymond James firm as underwriter. And our financial advisor stuck them with the same bid they gave us the last time. So we thought that was very favorable. And we negotiated it down, as I remember.
That's right.
Yeah, but we stuck them with it again, and they agreed to do it. And then we had the Hawkins firm with Sean draw up all the legal documents. So I have been through all these documents. And I have not read every word. But key, I think, on the indenture and the installment sale agreement, these two big items. Basically, Sean, are there any changes from what we did previously, or are they almost identical?
They're almost identical. You have to keep them identical because they're on an equal footing with your other bond issues. So investor, the security is the same. So the provisions largely stay the same. It's really the official statement that took the most time.
Right.
Updating and with the new rates and just new developments. I mean, we were able to take out a lot of regulatory stuff that's now in the past. But it takes time, a lot of staff time. But I think we're about 97% ready to go to market with the prospectus.
So the official statement describes, I think it's the document, these two are legal. The official statement describes the district, describes our finances, describes what we're doing. I have some comments.
Attachment G in the package.
And what?
Attachment G.
Attachment C.
G.
Attachment G. And one of the items, we have a big section on the pension liabilities. And I don't know if you noticed, but we've approved with our current rate plan, we've approved paying our unfunded liabilities down. The OPEB is going to be paid down over 6 years.
Right.
And the unfunded pension liability will be paid down probably over 12 years. We've got a two-step plan on that. And so we really would like you to write that up.
Yeah, it's actually, we did put that in there.
It's
We
quite a big
discussed
idea.
that and said that that's part of the rate plan, and so it's expected to be, well, it's still subject to your approval, but well, it would have been approved by the time we go release that to investors, so we have a paragraph on that in there.
Will we have new credit ratings as a result of this?
Yes, yeah. I mean, good to know that every time you issue bonds, there's a fresh rating.
Right.
Usually it's the same as the one before, but there are two considerations here. We're looking towards actually perhaps getting an increase, an improvement in the rating. And as we discussed, at the beginning of the process, we've actually sort of held off on selling these bonds until you're finished raising your rates and adopting the other things that you have in your plan, all of which are very positive. plus with the passage of time and continued, improvements in the system and strengthening the organization, and the whole story that you have is just terrific. So we're going to do our very best to make sure that they understand all the really good stuff and look towards, hopefully getting a bump up.
Including the fact that we now have, because they just did it, we now have a knowledge of what our next 5 years CMSA rates are. So that's part of the story too, because they just did the rates. So our costs are fixed. We know, well, water flow changes, but actually water flow went down a little bit because of our I&I reduction plans. But their rates are fixed, and that's an important part of the story.
Got it.
So what's going to happen on these documents? We have another meeting. Are we going to go, you're looking to approve them as to form tonight? They can't be changed.
Yeah, I mean, you delegate to staff to make final changes, but they're approved in the substantially final form that they're in now.
Well, there's going to be a lot of work on the official statement. I mean,
Not a lot. I mean, it may have looked like that, but there are only a few sections, I think, that need to be finalized with respect to the rates and projections. Usually those are tweaked until the very end to make sure they're totally right. But no, it's definitely substantially final.
Well, I think what we ought to do is have the Sperry firm tell us about the schedule, and then maybe Rob can tell us about what's happening in the market.
Sure.
And then we can, as a board, discuss what's going on.
Okay, well, as I said, we keyed this to, waiting until you finish your rate action. And, we understand that, we already started a 6-week notice period for the public hearing. The public hearing will be on the 19th of June. And frankly, we're going to go to market, as soon as we can after that, which would probably be within. We've already started our conversations with the rating agencies. They know that they're going to evaluate you on the basis of the new rates, all of which are going to be reflected in the official statement. So, they're teed up and ready to go. We expect to actually hear from them as to their rating decision a week before your public hearing. Now we can't release that, but we can tell you what they told us. So you get the hopefully good news in advance. But we can't go public with it until you have adopted the rates and they've said fine, you can release the rating. That's the other comment that I just want to make about sort of how are we approaching sizing the bond issue. We know that we need to deliver you $35 million for your purposes, and we need to cover our transaction costs and buy an insurance policy for the reserve fund. So if you just add all those things up, you've got close to $36 million in funding needs. We expect to sell the bonds under pretty conventional, normal terms these days, and with institutional investors, they like to have higher than market coupons for which they're willing to pay a premium. So in fact, the amount of bonds that we'll need to sell is probably going to be less than $35 million. But I came up with $37 million because I believe in unknown unknowns. And if it turned out Metallica came to Raymond James and said, we want to buy all the bonds and give you a heck of a deal, but we want discount coupons, we put, they do live and they're very wealthy. Anyway,
I thought it might be an investment firm I hadn't heard.
That's for Lars and James.
Is this bond sale different though? Because didn't we ask that we have an opportunity to pay the bonds back earlier than normal in order that if we were to sell a property,
yes,
like the Kerner building and the Larkspur landing, that we can put those monies back into an early repay.
And
Isn't that trying to change the
Sean, you want
bonds?
to?
Yeah, well, I'll address it from the legal side. Yeah, it seemed like with respect to the the Comcast building, I think you don't intend to sell.
No,
But, I mean, it's possible.
but we own the current building.
Right, but but the
The Larkspur Landing property.
Yeah, the Larkspur Landing property we're spending bond proceeds on.
Yeah.
So if you sell it, with knowing that you're not necessarily expecting to own it for the life of the bonds, we have to put in a call, and you have to pay off that portion of the bonds if you sell it in the future. So it's an optional call, so you could also refinance if you want, but there'll be a covenant that you have to pay off those bonds within 6 months if you sell the property, or dispose of it permanently to some private party.
That portion, so let me clarify, and I'm making these numbers up, we're spending $8 million to mitigate it. We sell it for 30, we have to pay back 8.
Right.
But could we use, if we wanted, I'm just asking legally, could we use proceeds of 30 to pay off more of the bonds?
So right now, we've structured the longest bonds with a short call, a January 2022 call, working with Sean and his tax department on that sort of the expectation of the horizon of what sort of the earliest possible date that we might be able to sell Larkspur Landing. And so we have to take the proceeds that go to Larkspur Landing plus the optical costs. So for example, we have about $8.5 million of bonds with this very short call. And the rest of the bonds have a 10-year call. We can certainly, as we get closer to price, and work with Jim and Martha to see if we can have a shorter call if they want to have that flexibility in terms of.
So we can only call what we have, the amount we have on the optional call. And and the bonds are not, and we cannot buy back bonds unless they're callable anymore. And so we don't want to have short calls on bonds that we're not going to call. So, according to the tax code, if the property gets sold to some for-profit or something, or we dispose of the property, give it away, we have to call the amount of bonds that we used to pay for that. But if we want, yeah, and that's good. I think that's a great idea. If we want to call more bonds, we either have to give them an early call, which I don't think we want to do.
It's expensive.
But we didn't want a 10-year call, we wanted an 8-year call. I'm hoping for an 8-year call.
That's fine. And also you have other series of bonds that have calls, so you're not limited.
Right, we can pay off all.
Good point.
We could,
Okay.
but most of them are not callable. Let's see, the 14 bonds were callable in 24. I think that's the first call we have so far.
Not very far.
But we could,
So we can pay off earlier bonds, fine.
but not till 24.
Yeah, sure, that's right around the corner. And what were you going to say, Marin?
I was just going to say the 2017 bonds, so.
2017 bonds had a 8-year call.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
just
that's
to be clear, the only paying back early bonds is what is attached to Larkspur Landing.
That's
Correct.
right, 8.5 million or so.
$8.5 million.
That's an
I thought-
obligation.
I
And we have
thought
to do it.
we were talking about Kerner taking that money to pay down the bonds. Is that off the chart now? So talk to staff.
And we could use it, but we can't do it until 2024 or 25.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to use that with this special call, because you might need it when you sell Larkspur. I mean, if that happened before you sold Larkspur Landing, I mean, if you decided not to sell Larkspur Landing, then I guess you could do it.
I think that what that Director Young is saying too is if you sell the bonds with a short call and you don't use it, over time it becomes more expensive.
Yes, of course.
So you don't have more callability than you use in the second need.
I'm comfortable where Director Gaffney reminded me that we have bonds that are going to come callable, and we can pay those off. I just want to pay off some bonds if we sell Larkspur Landing. I'd like to lower our debt load But that's a fine way to do it. We have
Yeah.
earlier bonds, pay those off
Right.
early, and.
But we can't do
You
it
wanna
until
go-
24, so
Let's say 24 is right around point.
Yeah, but our plan is to go pay as you go. And I'm feeling a little nervous now because in here it delineates using both properties to pay back the bonds, but this is new information, so I'm just trying
No,
to.
it's just the timing. It's the timing we can do.
Well, I was told 2.5 years,
That is on the Clarksville Landing
Yeah.
bond.
but not for the.
The rest of the
Okay.
package, I'm hearing you want to either call, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And you know, another, taking a slightly sort of longer view, and time passes quickly. If you sell Kerner, you're building up your cash reserves, which
Which we talked about.
yeah, you don't sell, you defer having to sell bonds for a long time. You can adjust the funds and spend them.
As long as it goes back into the key.
But I'm also in favor of calling bonds, you know, and I think in '24, we sold premium bonds, and if interest stayed about the same, we'd probably be able to refund them. And so if we refund bonds, we could pay off some and refund, you know, for savings on debt service.
So when you said it cost more on doing this calling of bonds, is that because of all the fees that have to go into the issuance and all that? Is that what you're referring to, it costs more money?
No,
Bond holders don't want to pay their loan.
well, if you sell bonds, let's say you want to be able to pay off these bonds in 3 years. Hey, we're going to sell Kerner, you know, I want to have a chunk, I want to be able to pay off a whole bunch of bonds at par, no premium, in 3 years. Well, we could do that, make a big block of bonds, callable in 3 years, but it's going to cost you right from the get-go, because, you know, investors are going to basically hit you with a little premium on the terms of the bonds out the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not the older bonds. And I'm sorry, one of the two, what's the earliest call on the 2014 bonds?
Is that 10 years? It was 10 years.
24, and the 17 bonds are at 25, because they had a date call.
I thought you put them the same as the 14 bonds.
Maybe we did.
I think
Anyway, that's a year apart, doesn't matter. Change that less. Okay.
I have a question about the interest.
So you put the money in the back of the ATM.
Do you think the interest rate's going to,
About what, Pam?
the interest of 4%, so we're not locked in, correct?
No.
So
That was,
where do you, I mean, I'm just trying to find, do you have any idea the interest rate will be, how things
the
will be
earliest calculation was
going up or down?
3.5.
Yeah, so we ran these with a cushion of 25 basis points, and our all-in without the cushion would be about 340. So 3.4% for all fees and everything for a 25-year level debt service.
And then I have one other question.
What bond, excuse me, I'm sorry. What bond rate is that at? Is that a-
That's at the AA minus the existing, and I think, what you said, last time the story was the progress you've made on the CIP and the cease and desist, restoring the liquidity and kind of right in the ship. A lot of that story we stripped out of the disclosure document because it's moot, and so now it's sort of continued, your liquidity is great, coverage is really good, the rate increase is very helpful, and the pension thing, which I have my handwritten notes on that. That's a big.
And then the CMSA being solid for the
Yes.
next 5 years.
So I think we make a pretty strong case to get it up to the.
It's possible that we'll have our written negotiations done, I don't know.
Around that time.
Yeah. Would that help? We have a lower, I think we're pretty close to it.
I think the real thing on the pension is that is O&M, it's a senior debt service, so by being able to show that there's a plan to have that resolved within a very short period of time, you know, long-term cost of carry.
Absolutely, Lewis. Absolutely, Lewis. That's why we're doing it. Yeah.
So
Now to save money later.
just got one question for staff. Somehow I missed the $7 million that we have left over bond money. right now, correct?
It's, yeah, thanks for that question. It's not exactly leftover bond money, but it is excess reserves from 1819 going into 1920.
But you've got it all committed, right?
We do have it all committed, yeah. And I can discuss that in more detail when we talk about the budget if you'd like to recommend.
Right, because when I calculated the 35 million, that 7 million went into that 35 million to make that, because my numbers were off, and I talked to Steve about it today.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's why it didn't add up, the 35 million, until the 7 million left over from previously.
From 1819.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, but that was part of putting that money together, correct?
It's definitely part of the equation, yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, what we could do now is call the public finances to meeting. It's after 6:30.
Yes, or there's a couple of other options for you, President Gaffney. You could take public comment as the board of directors for this item. You could then also, remember you have two separate resolutions that you're adopting. One is the board of directors and one is the Ross Valley Public Finance Authority. So
That's good. Let's, I'd like to open up to public comment. If any public would like to comment on this? Close the public comment. Any more board comments?
I just wanted to know if we can hear the dollar figures for the three components. Because 50% of
Some
cost of the
amounts.
building, how much is that? I know you guys just know it on top of your head.
6.4 million.
6.4.
And
then we've allowed
remediation,
8, 9, is that what we've allowed? Or?
I think it's more like, there's other costs. So currently in the budget, the number,
10?
it's over 10 million. Yeah.
Is it 10.6? Is that
Yeah,
what it is?
10.7.
10.7.
and then into capital, and is this for capital for just 1 year, or is it capital for multiple years?
It's primarily for 1 year, but it does flow into the next fiscal year, so it's for 1920 and 2021. I'd also like to mention that in addition to the 6.4 million, which is specifically identified as contribution to the Anderson property purchase, there's another 6.4 million to reimburse our operations and maintenance reserve. So that part of that bond money, a full $12.8 million of the bond money will go to fiscal year 18-19.
So then the remainder of 35 will go to capital over the next 2 fiscal
It
years.
goes to Ross project.
That includes
I
Butterfield.
think it's Ross. Isn't
One
it?
of
$6
One of them,
million,
yeah.
$5 million project, yeah.
Yeah.
Ross, San
Oh,
Anselmo.
Butterfield,
San
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Samsung.
And other projects. As I remember on our forecast that we had for the rate study, there was about 3 or 4 million in the year after next,
Right,
also from this bond issue.
Thank you.
yes.
So it's gone.
And we're approving 37 million, but we really hope we're going to sell less than, or pretty close to 35 million.
Yeah, you should, or maybe 33, depending upon premium if we have premium.
Yeah, I think for the $25 million bond that we sold, what was, you remember it was like 21,
So 21.8.
21.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a huge premium.
And we're buying one bond, we're not breaking it up like we did before. Remember we bought 2 different times, didn't we break up the
It's one
bonds?
series, but again, we'll have a series of maturities carved out with this special short call.
Right.
It's just one.
No, we didn't break it up. We had, we issued 3 bonds.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
Let's see, let's get a recommendation. I'd like to get a motion approving resolution 19,
So
1957, if that's the
I'm
issue.
going to make that motion. I'm going to move to adopt resolution number 19-1557, approving, authorizing, and directing execution of certain financial documents and directing certain related actions in connection with the financing of up to $37 million to be used to finance acquisitions and improvements to the district's facilities.
So
Good, is there a second?
It just was.
Michael was for a second.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we need a roll call?
No?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. I'm nervous, but aye.
Okay, good. Understand, okay, good, that was approved. Now,
I'm sorry.
now I'd like to call,
Were you voting for or against?
Well,
He said opposed. Any opposed?
no, I didn't oppose.
Okay.
she said aye.
I means yes.
I'd like now to call the special government board meeting of the Ross Valley Public Finance Authority to order.
Point of order, President Gaffney, if you could temporarily adjourn the meeting of the board of
I'd like to
directors.
temporarily adjourn, thank you for your help, the meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District Board. And now I'd like to open the call to order of the Ross Valley Public Financing Authority. Now, roll call.
I hate those guys.
And now, Julie, our roll call.
Borstein,
Yes.
Kelly,
Here.
Meggs,
Here.
Scylla,
Here.
Gaffney.
Here. Item 2 is approval of agenda. No changes, I don't think? No? Okay. Open time for public to raise items not on the agenda.
Did you want a motion and a vote on the agenda too?
Do I need it? Do I
I
need
think
it?
so.
Okay, I need a
Yeah.
motion then.
Nope, nope.
I don't need it, okay. Open time, any public wish to comment? Seeing no public. Item 4 is consideration of approving engagement agreement with Downey Brand LLP for legal services associated with the upcoming bond sale. So we did hire your firm for our last bond sale.
Yes, and with the, not anticipating that there would be another bond sale within a few months of the prior one, that engagement agreement was limited to that bond sale. And remember, the JPA agreement says that the general counsel for the Ross Valley Sanitary District also serves as general counsel for the financing authority. The problem is, for my firm to consider that authority a client, we have to have an engagement agreement. And so we did this last time, and it was limited to that transaction. And so we're doing the exact same thing this time for this transaction. It just allows me to, the documents include an opinion of the council of the district and an opinion of the council of the authority, and I do both of those as a separate council.
Is this just for a one-time deal, we're hoping?
Well, I think we'd like to continue to charge them 6 minute units, that keep the 6 minute.
Only 6 minutes. Okay, so consideration of approving we need a motion on
I
this.
move that we approve the engagement agreement with Downey Brand LLP for legal services associated with the upcoming bond sale.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any comment from the public? Okay, you have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Consideration of adopting resolution number PFA 19-1556 of the Ross Valley Public Financing Authority authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds in an initial aggregate principal amount not to exceed $37 million in connection with financing, acquisition, improvements in the Ross Valley Sanitary District, and authorizing and directing execution of an indenture of trust and installment sale agreement and certain other documents authorizing negotiation for the sale of bonds, approving an official statement, and authorizing other related documents. Need a motion?
I would so move to, I don't need to repeat what you just said. 'Cause
No,
that's
just-
done. I would so move.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Point of order, I'm sorry to interrupt, President Gaffney, public comment, please.
No, there isn't any public here. At all.
Any public?
Okay, any public?
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Why is there need to have a separate JPA to do the bond sale?
Because if a JPA issues revenue bonds, they're authorized to do so by board approval.
Okay. And why
If
couldn't
we
you do
used
it?
another act, we might have to go to a public vote. But most agencies issue revenue bonds through a JPA, or they issue certificates of participation, neither of which require a vote.
So JPA's joint power authority.
Joint power authority.
So one part of the joint is RVSD.
Yeah.
Who else is in on that?
California Municipal Finance Corporation.
Yeah, it's another JPA.
For various purposes,
Absolutely
including
nonsensical.
serving as a JPA partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they have a lot of members though. I mean, and they exist to help facilitate financing, so it makes some sense.
Okay.
They have a lot of public agency members.
It's not one of these things, including this shells around.
No.
Okay.
And they don't have to come to the meeting.
After we approve this, I would like Rob to give us a market update. But let's, so we've got a motion in a second. Any further public comment?
One quick, just one, I'm sorry. Out of these fees here, was the 1 million, is that part of the 1 million you talked about? There was $330,000 on here for fees, and you mentioned.
Yeah, that's part of
This is
it.
part of that million?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You got to add Cal Municipal Finance Authority. And what about the surety?
Yes, we've taken into account in our sizing.
Well, there's a surety, yeah.
Yeah.
And Municipal Finance Authority, what do they got, 10,000? Or 5,000?
Do you remember the last time?
I think it's
Just
5,000.
check.
We'll have to go check.
Yeah.
I thought they were free.
Yeah.
Municipal Finance, maybe that's fine. Okay.
I guess I have one thing that we didn't talk about, maybe I don't know if this is appropriate, is the debt service, which will put us up to almost 7 million a year for us, for our district, when these bonds kick in. And that's 13%. So I don't know if you want to talk about it now, probably not, but that is the elephant in the room, is the debt service for the district. Thank you.
Well, I think I'd go into the budget, which we're going to discuss in a bit.
Michael, what?
That would be under the budget, where we're,
Right.
is what it is. and
It's been included in
It's
the
been
budget.
included in the budget.
I know.
And
So,
we've shown that the coverage ratio, in other words, how much coverage there is versus that amount of debt, is very favorable. It's in the, from 1.6 to over 2. And so it's, I mean, it's been accounted for.
No, I know
It'd be
that.
great if we didn't have to pay it, but
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, I think it also, while it is high, and I'm hoping with you, and I think the rest of the board, that this is our last bond sale for some time. Now that we're really getting kind of out of the cease and desist order. We've made so many capital improvements, huge amounts of capital improvements. I mean, the roads all over our district are being shredded. When we put this all back together, I think what we've got is lower I&I, lower cost to CMSA, lower pension costs, lower OPEB liability costs. I think we've put ourselves in great shape for the long run. And I don't think 13% is outrageous. I mean, a lot of the other districts are way better, way worse shape than we will be. So I don't like issuing bonds, but I also don't feel, and I agree, we want to be pay-go, but I've been very clear that it's not fair to go pay-go until you put your house in order. You can't make people who are ratepayers today pay for the mistakes of 20 years ago and get the benefits that people are going to get 20 years from now. So the people who move to this district in 20 years have to buy into these pipes that we're fixing today. That's their obligation. It's like joining a club. You got an initiation fee. And so I'm not opposed to bonds. The rates are low. Well, I want to go to pay-go when we can, but not before we can.
That's right, and that debt service is a short-term plan. You know, right now, we're at a debt service ratio, you know, before this, about over 2, like you're saying. It goes down, if you look at later, we'll talk about in the budget, to 1.7, but that's still above the 1.5 floor that you set in your policy. So there's room to move there, but it's a short-term plan that you're bringing forward is because you structured this bond to have an early call and get that debt service ratio up again, with more breathing room relative to the floor that you set for the next.
And our capital program, we've been running at 20 to 30 million a year for the last 5 or so years. And after next year, it's going to be down in the 10 million range, which is pretty much what we're doing. And then the debt service, we're thinking that a good 8 million of it or so is going to get paid off in 3 years. So now we'll reduce it down further. And maybe in 2024,
We can use the proceeds from
we
current.
can call some or refund if interest rates are favorable. Anyway, we haven't voted on this yet. So, all in favor of the motion and second? Aye. Opposed?
What's the motion?
The motion is to approve this resolution of the Public Financing Authority.
Sell the rescue bonds.
Are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Aye.
Well, we got a good, from your partner yesterday at the Finance Committee.
Yeah, she's better, David, way better than I am. So
We told her you didn't have to come.
It's a lot better looking.
President Gaffney, is it appropriate this time to adjourn the public financing authority meeting?
I'd like to adjourn the Public Financing Authority meeting. Well, we could discuss it during the,
Sure, we could, but,
but reconvene.
Show some progress.
Right. All these tech.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you
I
guys.
just want to hang out for Rob's presentation.
Thanks, Sean.
Oh, now you're giving the presentation?
I wasn't gonna give it until they approved it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, comments, would you look at it?
All right, yeah. You want me to, can I take this?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we've got a short PowerPoint here on the first slide, which is previously labeled number 2. But under current market themes, your timing is really quite good. With the federal tax reform in 2017, volume last year was down dramatically, about 25% nationwide and over 30% in California, with the elimination of advanced refundings. Really took a big bite out of the market. Volume is up this year versus last year, up about 8% nationally and 25% in California, but it doesn't feel like it. There continues to be a supply and demand imbalance, so there's more demand for municipal bonds than bonds being issued. There's been a tremendous amount of money flowing into the mutual funds, averaging about $1 billion a week since the beginning of 2019. So about $20 billion has gone into the mutual funds, and something that the traders look at is the ratio of tax-exempt bonds to U.S. Treasuries. And those have come down considerably just because, again, the demand for the tax-exempt product is so big, and I think a large part of that is with tax reform and capping the state tax deductions. I'm sorry,
This is good behind you.
oh, sorry, should I stand up there? That'd be better?
Yes, that would be
Yeah,
good.
Sure, okay.
You're much taller now.
The big change this year has been the strong inflows into the mutual funds, up to the tune of about $20 billion since the beginning of the year, and that has really driven the ratio of tax-exempt rates to treasury rates down quite considerably. So we showed here the volume, and your timing is very good because this summer, and it's typically June, July, August, where there's significant bond redemptions. So as bonds get called or redeemed in the market, those investors are looking for a place to reinvest their funds, and so typically June, July, and August are good months to be a borrower. The economy is coming off of 2 years of relatively relaxed regulatory treatment. And we had a considerable corporate investment business. Obviously, we had a setback in the stock market last December, but the economy, in terms of the equity market, has been volatile, to say the least. And I think the one thing that continues to drive the market, and you'll hear people refer to the so-called risk-on, risk-off position, is the whole China thing. And there's been a significant flight to quality of investors globally being concerned about slowing China and implications for the global economy, and so the U.S. Treasury market has really benefited from that. Our interest rates are down about 100 basis points over the last 10 months, so we were looking at the 10-year Treasury in the low threes, potentially going up to 3.5, and now it's somewhere around 240, 45. And tax exempt rates and 30 years have come down, as I said, about 100 basis points since the fall. And again, if I were here last fall, this chart on the bottom left would have indicated, if you look at the Fed funds futures market, which is where investors are actually betting, putting money on the line as to where the interest rates are going, there was a near certainty of 2 or 3 interest rate increases, and now the probability index shows actually a 50% expectation of a cut as early as September. So there seems to be a softening in terms of long-term, where long-term interest rates are going. I guess the chart on the bottom right really shows from the beginning of the year in the tannish line to where we are when we put this together a couple of days ago, the reduction in rates.
Hey, Rob, didn't our bonds sell kind of, I'm looking at that MMD curve.
Yes.
Didn't our bonds sell at about the MMD rate?
Yes, and now I think I didn't see the underlying scale, but we have seen high grade, which you are out 10, 15 years, actually well through the index. There's so much demand, and that really is, and the index is what things get priced off of. And as Thomas said, if you 3 years ago, if you priced on the index, that was great, and normally things would be above the index, and we've seen, just because of the demand in California, out through about 15 years, deals pricing well through the index.
But I mean, I'm looking at that, and that's in the low to mid twos.
It's the 30-year MMD is about 245. It's
So when you said something like 3.4, what do we be down to? In the twos somewhere? Maybe?
well, in the law, I actually have my worksheets up here. We're looking at, and these are what I'm working off of is a couple of weeks old. But we were looking at for the longest normal bond, the 2044, a 4% coupon at a yield of 3.35.
At 3.35?
Yeah. And again, that's probably 20 basis points lower today. It's been, and that's the reason we've been running your numbers with a cushion, just so in terms of the projections in the official statement and also in terms of your approvals. But the cushion's going to go away.
And so the rates even on this one, down 25 basis points or more, just over that side period.
And the last chart shows on these ratios where they are in the very short end, 65–70% of treasuries, and if you think of the highest marginal tax rate, that's pretty close to break even, and so there's no accounting for the lower liquidity in the muni market. Traditionally, these ratios would be 80–90%, and in the financial crisis, they got well above 100%, so it's really strong. I don't have a chart here on, but I can speak to it. The biggest phenomenon that we've had over the past couple of years and continues are what are referred to as separately managed accounts. And these are, all the big money managers have these programs now where, imagine if everybody here had, hypothetically, $10 million to invest in munis. They will hire a Nuveen or Northern Trust or the Boston Company, or everybody has them. And what they do is say, gee, you want 1 to 10 years, you may want 15 to 30, but everybody has separately managed portfolios, but they are run by these large fund complexes. And so when we bring you to market, I would imagine years 1 to 15 will all be these SMA accounts who you can see in the orders are actually infilling, even though they may put in for 2 or 3 million bonds a year at different spots, those are actually going into several different accounts. They're running laddered portfolios, they may have life events that they're planning for in terms of college tuition or whatever. And the amount of, because the fee structure in those products have come down a lot, and you get unlike a bond fund where you just own a share of a pot of the securities, you as the investor in one of these programs own the underlying securities. And it's just been the biggest investment phenomenon. And the other key, which is good for you, is when people put money in those, they can't sit uninvested because they're supposed to yield. You give them money, you say, hey, I want you to buy tax-exempt bonds. I mean, I have other money in equities or real estate. So as money comes into those accounts, they have to buy. And the inflows are staggering. So your timing is very good.
Can people in Marin buy these bonds?
I would think so.
No, I think there's a Marin exception.
No.
No, I mean, we can certainly do
Not down the Raymond James account.
dedicated broker with an 800 number so that it doesn't ring, somewhere into the ether and give priority to the residents.
I have a feeling you know.
Well, I've had bond issues where we put an ad in the paper and encourage local people to buy the bonds. Because a lot of people may not have a Raymond James account. Do you see? So you let them know with an ad. I think that.
Well, we did that for the city of San Rafael. They posted a notice for utilities. Often people do a statement stuffer in their bill. We could certainly work with your staff to have something on the website.
I like the ad.
We did it for the 2018 bonds. I think it's a great idea for this bond series as well.
People in the community knew.
Yeah. Yeah, and we worked with Raymond James to publicize that bond issue.
Yeah, we've been carefully scheduling this bond issue. Actually, it's whatever we could get our act together. Figure it out and what's the project. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, I think we're all going to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Bye-bye.
All right, yeah.
Great work.
Well, thanks, yeah. No, great work, you guys.
That's good.
No, the worst thing is having these.
That's pretty awesome. But we suspect it's exactly the same.
Okay, and just stay here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Talk to you next week. All right.
Agenda item 8, let's move on. Committee reports out, the Finance Committee. Michael and I and Mayor Doug met with the Finance Committee.
I did not participate.
Doug was
Yeah,
in the room.
we went over all these documents. We
Great.
went over all the
Okay. Yeah.
proposed budget, and we went over the big expense thing. So we had a full briefing on the debt service yesterday. It's quite a long and detailed meeting, but it was very, very good and interesting. How about CMSA?
Sure. Of importance, I'm going to tag team here a little bit. Near and dear to my heart, I noticed that the Marin Airport and the Marin Transit, when we were having our buying the building at Anderson, became clear that parking of buses is at a very big premium in anywhere in Marin County, and Marin Transit operates like 5 different independent little companies: Marin Transit, Marin Paratransit, I think it's Whistle Stop Wheels, Stagecoach out to the coast and back, but they don't actually run any of it. They shop that out, and it's like the Marin Airporter runs all those little green and white Marin Transit buses that are zooming all over the place, and they're killing themselves to find places to park their buses at night. And it became clear to me, because several years ago, I haven't been on the board for a while now, we were looking maybe for some temporary housing at Central Marin Sanitation Agency, that there's about a 2-acre piece of property sitting there. It's really not being used for very much right now, and we talked about maybe using it for us, but it wouldn't probably be for a really long-term period of time. and they were not willing to commit to us, but it seemed to me that maybe Marin Airport, Marin Transit through Marin Airport could park some of their buses there, and then it would be additional revenue for Central Marin Sanitation Agency, and they need to find places to park the buses anyway, and all of their drivers are cleared and drug tested and security, and it seemed perfect, and so we authorized the staff over there to come up with a lease that they will be parking probably for a lease of 5 years with additional afterwards to park some buses there.
About 16 buses.
Up to. Yeah, they got 11 right now and up to 16 buses. And just as a note, and I'll say it because I think
So thank you.
my fantasy is that the Marin Transit has said that they will be adding fully electric buses into their system, and Marin Transit buses will certainly have some of those electric buses. And if we were to charge them, recharge them on the CMSA property, it would be with 100% clean energy from biogas. So not anything from PG&E, so it's 100% clean energy. And my fantasy, is that on the back of the buses, it would say powered by poop. But,
And they'd be paying for that energy.
powered by wastewater, and they would be paying for that energy also. But it really is 100% green energy at that point, and that would really be terrific.
And we could sell it to them at a rate,
Below what they would be paying.
well, below, or we could, we'll split the difference with
Yeah.
it because there's no transportation
Yeah.
element in the rate.
Yeah, it would be a deal for them to do it. So anyway, that's too much for that. CMSA, over the past number of years, has really been working hard to look at how can they reduce their power consumption. Whereas we at Ross Valley have some pump stations that work a couple times a day at very high capacities. CMSA is all about pumping. And they've been working very hard at really monitoring closely where are they using electricity and where could they cut back and save $40,000, $50,000 a year in electricity costs, which even though we generate all of our own biogas and do most of it internal, it does mean that when sometime in the next year or so, when we begin to export power out onto the grid, by monitoring what we use internal, we're going to have a whole lot of extra energy to send back out, totally green power, again, powered by your wastewater, for people to use out on the grid. And that would be a terrific thing also.
If I can just.
Yeah, please go ahead.
They have a whole huge series of charts of every machine, and the other benefit of this is you're watching the power of a particular machine, and when it's out of sync, it lets you know maybe you've missed some maintenance. So that's great.
If you start to see a machine that should use this much power start to use more power, it's an indication that that pump is working too hard, there might be something there, and it automatically catches that. So aside from just monitoring power, it has other useful benefits also. We're going to be putting in another cogeneration system there. The current one is very old and runs at 750 kilowatts. And so we're going to put in a new generator, and it can run up to 1 megawatt. And it will actually be 30% more efficient than the current generator. So it will actually generate at a much higher efficiency than the current one. But it will allow us then to have a backup plan. If we have to bring, because of maintenance, we have to bring the cogeneration systems down. If we have now a spare one, it means we can bring the new one down and bring the old one up and have it run during the time that the new one is down, and vice versa, back and forth. But the problem is that the old one that we've got is coming up for some really major rehab work that could go down for 8 or 9 months. And at which time, if we didn't have a new one coming in, we would have to purchase power from PG&E, Marine Green Energy, Deep Green Energy, at that rate for that amount of time. So we were, Jason and the staff came up with a way that instead of having the contractor who's going to win the bid to install the whole thing, purchase that generator for us, that we could actually pre-purchase it with the agreement. They would then take it and install it and take possession of it, but then we could have it on site and save many months of time, and actually there's some cost savings by then not having to have the contractor actually have to do that work of figuring out where to get the generator. And so we approved Jason to go ahead and look at pre-purchasing that generator. We went through the budget for fiscal years 2019 and 2020 and 21. And we had, the finance committee a while ago recommended that we do a 2-year budget. Whereas the Ross Valley Sanitary District really has to do a budget every year because surprises come up every year that we're unaware of. Well, we buy a building or we have to clean up a site or something like that that we might not have known about a year ago. So our budget really has to be a yearly thing. CMSA, in general, has their projects really planned out for the next 10 years, the best that they can do. And it's more likely that they will be consistent than we would be. So we authorized, instead of having, as you well know, we finish one budget, and starting in June, when we okay this one, we're going to start on next year's budget already to do the next one. It's like running for Congress. But we authorized CMSA to go ahead and do a 2-year budget, and then only have to do this exercise 2 years. It'll save a lot of time and effort over there. We think it's a good idea. Doug, a while ago, noticed, hey, what's that piece of land up above CMSA? Well, it turns out that we don't exactly know how many acres.
I said it has to be a typo.
25 to 40 acres up there of possibly, who knows what you can do with the land. But it's not being used by CMSA, and in fact, it's sliding here and there.
That's where it came up. We got FEMA money to fix the slide, and that's why I said we should sell it.
We should sell it.
The next guy fix it himself.
Yeah. So we formed a committee, and Doug is on that committee, to analyze what properties do we have at CMSA and how can we best utilize them. Not just the land across the way. Can it be used? What can it be done? An exact mapping of it. But what pieces do we have at CMSA that could be used for other things? Land that we can use for Marin transit buses. Last week you may have noticed Santa Fe is committed to really green energy, and maybe some of that little land in that corporation yard, they could charge your meter maid little electric vehicles. 100% green. We got the energy there. Maybe that would be a good thing. There are other things, so we're looking at that. What can be done with some excess property that we might possibly have on site? That was it.
Affordable housing,
It'd be very, very expensive housing.
Condos.
Yeah.
It overlooks the bay. It's got about 180-degree view of water.
And a beautiful view of this.
I'm on this, along with Michael, on the Central Marin Finance Committee, and we reviewed the 2-year budget and all. Of note, though, is that last year Ross Valley Sanitary District funded 50.5% of the total budget of Central Marin. This year, and going forward, we're down to 49.3. And I don't know if it's in the margin of error or not, but it's the right trend. And it's saving us 1.2% of $17 million. It's a big number. And it's because maybe we're showing some results of all this capital that we've done.
That we're built on the flow. If our flow goes down, our bill goes down.
Flow and strength.
If our bill goes down, Columbia and Santa Fe, bill goes up.
Yeah,
Very
and then they
simple.
can work on it.
Unless they're doing better.
And if they're not, if they catch up,
If they surpass us in I&I, then it could go the other. It's a percent of, it's a
yeah,
percent.
they're not doing the kind of work we're doing.
No,
It's to everybody's advantage for all these agencies to improve, because the plant receives less flow.
That's right. Less flooding, everything's good.
Okay, North Bay watershed, Paul?
Did I bring this in? I can't remember, but anyway, this is our final strategic plan. Very well done, many hours, meetings. I thought they did an excellent job and we finalized. We're starting to plan for the conference for 2020. It's every other year. So if you know of any really awesome, good speakers, let me know, or Judy Kelly know, because she's starting to look for people to speak. We also had a guest speaker, Roland Sanford from Solano County Water Agency. A lot of history there. Really, kind of grew up not far over there, but it starts all the way up near Dixon, and it comes all the way down to Fairfield, Sassoon City, Rio Vista, and then ends up near Benicia. Serve around, I think it's 400,000 people. So he did quite a long presentation about the history, some projects we're doing, this North Bay Aqueduct, also some flood control. And they have a festival. They have the Winter Salmon Festival every year. So they're really doing well, and a lot of habitat is starting to reappear. One of the problems that they're still struggling with is the zebra quagga mussel control, which is, it gets on the boats and then it gets very destructive. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ad hoc education committee.
I'll do that. There haven't been too many changes since the last week. As you know, we have 4 commercials, not commercials, running on Comcast, Marin only. The ad hoc subcommittee did authorize the general manager to purchase 4 ads during the Warriors finals. We didn't go for the playoffs, we didn't go for we went to the finals. And so I believe it's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th games. We'll have 1 ad each. And I think that will reach a lot of people. We're doing, the 2 ads that we're doing are the ones that affect the district monetarily the most, which is fog and wipes. Flushables, non-flushables.
What about salt ports?
Well, that's good, but I think we want to have these repeat, So we have these 2 going. But it's fun. And I think it reaches a lot of people.
Maybe we should shorten them by 4 seconds and do a buy our bonds campaign.
That's true.
Sounds like we don't have to do a lot of selling.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like we're going to get swiped up.
Okay, item 9 is verbal report by board members and staff. And request for future items, any verbal report?
Just this, I ran into a ratepayer in San Anselmo who I know from previous service on the San Anselmo Town Council. He asked me if I had seen San Francisco Boulevard. San Francisco Boulevard, unrelated to Ross Valley Sanitary, they're ripping it. I mean, they have 30 trucks pulling away the old cement. I mean, the old, so they're just digging it out to dirt, flattening it. And in the process, they found some pipes that they didn't anticipate, and I just want to point out the staff here was insanely on it. I mean, they just did a lot of work. They made a request at night to me, and they got a request at 6:30 in the morning back to them, which was extremely detailed. And then
Wasn't that on the weekend? It was on the weekend.
and well, I think he spoke to me on Sunday. So he spoke to me on Sunday night.
And they were there Monday morning.
And there's some laterals that are in place that aren't anticipated, and so anyway, I just want to say that staff did staff and management did a really fantastic job helping them.
Michael and I and Steve went out to visit the dig.
Oh,
It was an offset pipe as well, and we had a force account crew working madly, and we're gonna fix it in one day.
It's a war zone.
That was
And
pretty,
it's fascinating to see brickwork manholes that were put in 100 years ago
Yeah.
on the San Francisco, I mean, that's one of the oldest streets in San Anselmo.
By the way, interesting enough, as you drive down San Francisco Boulevard, you're in San Anselmo, and then you're in the county, and then you're in San Anselmo. So about 3 blocks of it are patrolled by the sheriff, and it's just crazy.
When you drive up there, you feel like you're in the state.
So my car's still filled with money.
any other board comments? No. Staff?
Oh, good. Yeah, I wanted just real briefly, a couple of letters of recognition for our staff. I wanted to call out that we received from a resident a thank you letter, a really letter of recognition for Aaron Dillingham, who works in our inspection department. Just exceptional customer service. Bearer of bad news, the lateral didn't pass the test, but always there to answer questions quickly within 24 hours every time. When it came time, the grant was approved in less than 3 days to help them with getting the lateral put in. And so that was one of the honor Aaron Dillingham for getting.
Was that San Anselmo or what town was that?
This particular one, I'm not sure. Oh, yes, San Anselmo, near Greenfield. And then, and along these lines, so that was last week we got this letter of recognition. We also got a commendation note for Sasha Amiri Nair, who helps out with our lateral program and does a lot of public interface. It's kind of the front office person. She and Catherine Hayden, who's here in the audience, really went to bat for a homeowner who had to have a lateral replaced. I don't know if it was a remodel or a sale. But the paving for the city of Larkspur was due that Friday. There was time, they had a plumber lined up to get it done Wednesday, but their permit had been denied. And so Sasha and with Catherine's support got in touch with the Public Works Director at Larkspur, Julian Skinner, and got an exception made, and lateral was installed before the paving was done. And I think, and so we want to thank Sasha and Catherine for being aware of the customer service need. But I also want to highlight that this is a theme that will continue as we work with the towns that are doing lots of paving. We are under pressure to fix laterals for I&I control and all that, and have a good system. And we have our program that we're encouraging that to do. And then we have our ordinance that we are implementing, so it requires people to do changes. But then when the pavement comes in, there's a moratorium for tearing up the street, and it can be really high, it can be 5 years or more based on the pavement condition in there. So it puts people in a difficult bind. And so we'll continue to have to come up with solutions for folks to be in compliance with our ordinance, but also not pay extraordinary fees to repave curb to curb. And so I just want to highlight that this is an ongoing challenge for our staff, but just to emphasize, we're always looking for solutions and having a customer service orientation. So we're not going to be rigid with folks to hold things up, to hold things over their head to implement our ordinance, but we have to implement our ordinance. So there will be an ongoing issue.
So we may have to amend the ordinance to take account of use if necessary, because we can do that. We've amended it a bunch of times.
I would say, I think the ordinance is in fine shape. I don't think we need to amend it right now. I'd also point out that I got a call from Town Manager Todd Cusimano of Cordillera, and I don't know if they've taken this action, but they're planning on adopting our ordinance. And also spoken to Las Colinas Sanitary District, Mary, is it Mary? Megan Clark, we made some progress there. This is what the realtors all want. We just please have one role in the county.
We were actually talking about that at CMSA last night with Dan Giovanni, and Senator Fell is actually looking at ours also.
Yeah, that's right. We've been working on that. And that's really helpful for, I think, residents of the county. To have a consistent rule book. And so that's great. Thank you for your support of those efforts. Just a couple other quick things. On June 11th, we're planning a ribbon cutting at the Bon Air Center, and it's going to be a pop-up style event, so if you quick get in at lunch hour on Tuesday, June 11th, and invite you as a board. We'll talk about who would like to give some remarks about a ribbon cutting ceremony for Pump Station 12, Bon Air Pump Station, and Pump Station 13, the Green Break Pump Station, which are both located in Bon Air Center Shopping Center. It's a chance for us to thank the residents of the businesses at that center for tolerating our construction for 2 years and being great neighbors. And we want to feature some of the foods of the Bon Air Center and invite our residents and ratepayers to join us to celebrate this and have special guests join us. So a quick program, but also a chance for our staff, James Smith, who the engineer, and our staff who help really project manage those projects, and they come together on budget, on time, and give him a chance to tell folks about what we've done. But we're proud of the odor control and noise, low noise at the Pump Station 12. It's right by the Chevron station on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. So we thought it'd be a great community outreach opportunity.
Is that going to be right there? Is it going to be held right by that pump station?
Right by the ivy covered structure.
Yeah.
So we'll stay in touch, and you all can tell me who wants to give remarks, brief remarks.
Yeah.
I'll be the MC.
So what's the date again?
June 11th, Tuesday, June 11th, 11:30 to 1:30. And then I want to note that a couple days ago, we did have a kickoff meeting for the Infrastructure Asset Management Plan update, the IAMP. The consultant team came to the district, and we spent the day going through different elements of the IAMP, and it was great. Our staff was all there from different divisions, and getting a sense of how we want this to be an integrative plan that's useful to staff, but also responsive to the regulatory requirements, because it was originally put in the cease and desist order, and it integrates elements of our sewer system management plan. So that effort's underway, and Catherine Hayden deserves a lot of credit for getting that off the ground. I'm very grateful. And that's all for my update.
Any other comments from staff? Okay, great.
I'd like to really very quickly add that thank you to Catherine and Sasha for taking care of some of the more elderly people on Redwood Road in San Anselmo, where it was really shut down. And I know of one particular woman who was no longer able to drive, and Uber and Lyft were not able to make it up to her house. And when she needed to get out, she would walk outside, and Ranger would stop what they were doing, and two of those gentlemen would walk her down to the base of Redwood Road and make sure she was okay and get her back to her house afterwards. So.
Wow, did you say Ranger?
Yeah, no, they're doing good stuff. They're having to put up with the people on Bolinas Avenue in Ross, who are very upset that we got that all shut down.
Okay, let's move on to 10, consent calendar. Matters under this item are considered routine, maybe enacted by one motion.
I'd like to pull something.
Which one would you like to pull?
Hold on one sec. The cash report. I don't know, what is that, 10B? Yeah, 10B.
The financial?
The cash report, 10B.
She means the check register.
Yeah, the check register. And change it.
Okay, let's go to 10B.
Okay, I had a quick question on line 35 on page 104. This rental generator, is that new or is that just ongoing, 7,000?
That was a one-time payment for a generator backup at pump station 14 in Larkspur, outside Kent Middle School. We had some trouble with it. Oh, I'm sorry, all middle school. Right here, right here.
There it is, right there.
Right there. Yeah, it's an older generator. We actually are proposing in the next year capital budget to replace that generator.
Okay.
Didn't we have a story about where that generator came from?
Yeah, there's a bit of a story where that generator came from.
Maybe we can talk about it.
I don't know if we have, yeah.
Is this a generator when the power goes out?
Which
Is that
one
what
is
it's
it?
for?
What's it? Yeah.
So that's what's our conversation I forgot to bring up, that with the new red flag days, they're going to be shutting, PG&E is going to be shutting the power off more. So that's going to change things.
Oh, yeah.
You ready to get your running shoes? Yeah. Okay, I don't want to talk about legal because we're doing that, you're sending me emails on that. Okay, on page 2 of 4, a ratepayer fund for luscious foods for 14,000.
Yes.
What is that? It
Salads.
better be good food.
That was a refund. Remember, she had a water leak, and she sat right here at one of our board meetings. We had a private closed session, and then we had an open session, and I looked up, and I know Heidi, so I said, "Oh, hi," and she said, "Yeah, she got $37,000 for sewage treatment that year." As it turns out, she had a leak on MMWD. They gave her a refund, and based on the amount of the leak, she was entitled regulatorily to a refund, and that's what she got.
Okay, I figured I just couldn't remember what her company was. Okay, moving down, I just wanted to ask, so our PG&E bills are 82,000, is that right?
We do have that. So
Is that kind of a, usual?
83,000.
that might have been part of a capital improvement project cost. Was there
I think we paid in advance for
At
something.
the pump station,
the pump station 13 to do the,
they replaced the transformer.
they replaced the transformer? I don't know specifically the details of that particular bill, but I do know we've had some extraordinary PG&E costs, especially this last winter.
So,
And we also-
maybe since we've got a new building, and I used to chirp about this all the time, was asking for solar. Greg didn't think we really could do it, but I'm gonna bring it up again. I mean, a lot of public agencies are using solar, even funky
Oh, I think we
Fairfax.
should definitely look at solar big time at 111 Anderson.
Right.
The roof, and in my view, all the
Parking lot.
parking. There's plenty of places we could
Yeah.
generate power, we could be selling power out of that
Yeah,
place.
so anyway, I just was sort of shocked to see that's a lot of it. And then, turning the page over to 3 of 4, I brought this up last month on this credit card. It says credit card charges, $24,849. The same thing happened last month, and if I remember right, I think you said you would get those charges.
Yes.
And here we are again with the same thing.
I apologize. I do-
I would like to see the charges.
Absolutely, and
Okay.
I neglected to bring them with me tonight, but I do have them and we can include them in the packet. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
All right, so let's go back to,
I'd like to move the consent calendar.
Second.
any further discussion? Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
We need to wait for a few minutes.
I did, but I don't know if you know.
Edit it
There's agenda item 12.
For the recess, I'll edit it.
Consideration of approving authorizing the GM upon review and approval council next year. Consultant service agreement with Solus. The amount of $618,500 for construction management services for the fiscal year 16-17 Grand Sewer Improvement Project. Butterfield, Medical, that's one of the biggest construction management contracts we've
We've had others in that range.
So I'll say items 12, 13, and 14, kind of, they go together. This one's the first consideration for the construction management services, and item 13, considering awarding the low responsive bidder on the same project, Butterfield, Meadowcroft Arroyo, and Sanitary. And then there's a third item, 14, reviewing and approving a hold harmless agreement with the town of San Anselmo related to surface restoration. So they all kind of go together. And in terms of how large or small, I think with construction management, you have to have it in the context of the scale of the project itself for the construction, which is over $5 million. And so, as a rule of thumb, we try to shoot for 15% or less of the contract cost for this type of work, and this budget comes in at 11%, so it's not extra large. And there's an issue about, the timing of the work has to be done in the summer while school's out, and there's only so many hours in the day that can be billed in construction management. So that in a compressed time period.
We also have to get it done before the rain starts.
Right.
Anyway, like that.
You got it. So this area, I would just offer those that context. In terms of the project itself, I'll note that this is mostly for structural deficiencies, but there's some other elements of it that deal with capacity. And also, in this Butterfield area, very difficult place to build. It's a difficult neighborhood to do construction. And we had our challenges even this last winter, getting things in there at the right time and with the right method. We're going to use for extra deep portion of the sewer, we're going to use a method of installation called pilot tube boring. And that is, if you've ever done horizontal directional drilling or you do a pilot borehole, but you're actually doing trenchless, if you will, at a very deep level. So you're not doing a really deep trench with extraordinary shoring and risk and everything else within this little neighborhood. We are removing a sewer siphon beneath Sleepy Hollow Creek near Willow Way. And so that's always good where warranted. They're not our favorite parts of the infrastructure. They can be functional, siphons work. We're going to be putting some in replacing sewer bridges and that sort of thing. But in this case, it's a good one to remove it. It creates surcharge upstream. Is that right? And
We have a history of overflows.
there's an overflow history linked with that piece of infrastructure that's old. And it's an old sewer going up through Butterfield. Was it built in the 20s or the 50s or something?
That's where I get into the 50s.
Yeah. So it's still very old. So anyway, the first item is to consider the construction management service associated with the project.
In the finance committee, we noticed there's a new company here called Somas, which we hadn't seen before. And Somas is really Cabello, who we've used many, many, many times in the past. And so it's really the same people, just a new name. I think, is that?
That is correct.
Is there a Cabello? Is this a subsidiary or is it?
Yeah, Justin Super with Somas. Justin Super with Somas, so the construction manager. Yeah, Cabello was purchased by Somas in June of last year, so we are merging now. The name changed, so that's why you see Somas now.
And I see you're going to be on the project for, most of 8 months, so it's a long project.
Yes.
And we went out for RFPs to a lot of firms, so we got 2 proposals. Is it pretty busy now? Is that the message?
It is fairly busy, yes. Quite busy.
Board, any questions?
I'm glad you have a chance to meet Justin. He's been a really great friend, supporter, conscientious worker for the district on many projects. He's worked on pump stations for us that have been a challenge to work on, but as I said earlier, coming in on budget and on time. And also really helping us in the field to navigate, work in the neighborhoods, working with the contractors and the towns, coordinating. So it's nice to have, publicly recognize Justin as a real team player of our district. And we're glad that you submitted a proposal on this project. And we're glad to have it.
Thank you. Any comments by the board?
Are you the one that was helping us?
You're one and the same.
I was going to say.
So, yes, I have dealt with it. It's not, construction's not always a simple
But
process.
you were a miracle worker in that neighborhood. So I want to give you extreme kudos from Fairfax, because I heard a lot about it. So thank you for dealing with that.
That's great. I see it's not the lowest bid, but we see the scores and why this was considered the best applicant. So that makes sense. you like a motion?
Any public comment? Hearing none?
I move we approve and authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute a consultant services agreement with SOMAS in the total amount of $618,500 for construction management services for the FY 16-17 gravity sewer improvements project, Butterfield/Meadowcroft Arroyo project number 945.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13 is the next phase of this element of this project, and this is the construction part.
If we don't have this, if we don't approve this, we just have somebody manage it.
We're probably doing backwards.
Moment in time.
Then you can just manage us, you know?
Or Fairfax.
Manage the board.
Pay for it.
So we need a project.
Now that we've got them in.
Yeah.
So we did talk a little about, so I won't regurgitate the project description, but I will note that we received 4 responsive bids. So we have 4 bidders, which is better than the 2 that sometimes we get on a complex, difficult project in the heart of San Anselmo. And they were all pretty favorable. The one that was lowest in responsive by responsive bidder was slightly below the engineer's estimate. And the others were not too far afield of that. So, KJ Woods is the selected contractor. And I don't think KJ Woods has been a project in the district for some time. But they bid, in my previous experience, we would get bids from KJ Woods often on the Marin County project. So they have looked at it before.
Is there somebody from KG Woods here?
Now, the engineer's estimate was re-estimated, right?
Yes. We had the larger, the increase in what the bids we saw coming in, so they adjusted the estimate based on recent bids that we've received and other agencies there.
And the breaking it up into base bid and alternate bid, it's not clear to me why you guys did that, except that it was over budget.
That's over budget, it would allow, you could just award the base part. You didn't have to award the whole thing. If you know, the amounts come in significantly over the engineer's estimate, the base bid is kind of a critical piece to complete the capacity improvements that are required.
Yeah, good point. There's a time sensitivity to this project. It's we work cooperatively with the town of San Anselmo because they're doing a lot of paving in the area, and they actually postponed a portion of their paving to accommodate these needed improvements, which had been identified by the district for years in the infrastructure asset management plan. So this project was moved up a bit, and it helps explain, when we're talking about the budget, this big spike that we're managing with revenue bonds, et cetera. This adds to that because we are working cooperatively with the town to move this project up in the queue. But it addresses all the needed capital issue, as we enumerated. So there is that element, and then fitting it into the school break, because Brookside Elementary is right there.
And San Domenico's at the end of the road.
There you go.
Yeah. And
And
there's another one, right?
Valley.
Hidden Valley's back there too, yeah, it's,
Right. So a lot of school traffic, on sidewalks and everything else. We did actually, it was an innovation during design to take the fix out of the road and into the sidewalk, which will help with traffic control, even though it's non-school hours or days and season. So there are a lot of moving parts and how this fits into the overall program, but the timing is good, and we're fortunate to have that the alternate bid didn't push things beyond what we could afford. And we had that structure in there just in case, because there were elements of this where we really need to get them in the ground before the paving. And we had to pay a higher price, then other things within the project could be put off for another time. So that's why it was structured that way. So thanks to Catherine and Jill Marin.
But it still says it's 1 million above the amount included in the 1920 budget. Does that mean we're gonna roll it into another budget?
It was the amount that was in the budget, in the 2018-19 budget.
Oh, we updated
increased it.
costs, okay.
Yeah, we updated it during the rate study process. So the larger amount had been included in the rate study.
Yes, that's a full disclosure. You know, a year ago when we were budgeting, we were anticipating the 1920 and thought it would be less, so we had to make adjustments. And it's one more reason why we are doing a revenue bond.
Any other comments by the board? Any comments from public? Well, we've got a construction manager.
Let's give it a
You have something to do.
I move that we award and authorize the manager upon review and approval of council to execute the construction contract for the fiscal year 16-17, wow, a long time ago, gravity sewer improvement project, Butterfield, Meadowcroft, Arroyo, with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, KJ Woods Construction, in an amount not to exceed $5,338,000.
Is a second?
Second, Michael gave it to you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on, item 14. Consideration of authorizing the GM on review to execute a joint construction and hold harmless agreement with San Anselmo for $56,810 for road and improvement facility construction of the previous project. In coordination with the town of San Anselmo paving. We've had experience with coordinating paving on the San Francisco project.
Yeah, that's right. So this goes with the Butterfield project in terms of paying for pavement. Is there kind of a high-level story behind that you want to?
So when they had scheduled to complete Meadowcroft all-in-one paving project, and given the timing of this work, they're going to defer just the end part from about east of Morningside to Butterfield, and they're going to do a second phase of paving. So this joint construction agreement is related to that work, which would happen after we complete our work. So
Right.
timing of the paving, we're dancing a bit with the paving and all over and it was schedules. And this, fortunately, the paving deferments.
That's right, and so that's the story I told earlier about them delaying a portion of their planned paving to accommodate this needed sewer improvement. And so there's a cost to the district, to us, of that inconvenience to them. Is one way of looking at it. And it's our good faith effort to help them cover the costs they incur by accommodating our infrastructure project.
Have they already received a bid for paving?
Not for the phase 1B, not for this work.
So, because that's what it looked like in the contract, so, but our price is fixed, it can't go up or whatever bid they get.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a project, and then we dig up the street, and then we got to pave it.
That's right.
We have construction manager.
We got to manage it.
I move to authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute a joint construction and hold harmless agreement with the town of San Anselmo for $56,810 for roadway improvements facilitating construction of the fiscal year 2016-17 gravity sewer improvements project, Butterfield, Meadowcroft, Arroyo, in coordination with the town of San Anselmo 2019 pavement rehabilitation project phases 1A and 1B.
Second.
I have a question, and I think we're supposed to go out to the public too.
Do we get to get a second, then you can ask him?
Second.
Okay. If my memory serves me right, seems like San Anselmo seems to get, are they waving a flag or something? Because I don't see Fairfax they don't seem to coordinate anything with us, and I'm just wondering, you know what I'm talking about for the streets and stuff? Seems like they're off the radar. Is that, who does the outreach and how is it done? I think Larkspur is pretty much in that part. It's San Anselmo for sure a lot. But I don't, coordinating projects so that we can help share the cost of ripping up the road.
I think that really started a while back with Sean Condrey in San Anselmo reaching out to Ross Valley and MMWD, PG&E. And his team has continued under his direction to do Rachel, who does that now. And I don't think the other towns are quite as proficient.
Okay, so it's the man or Public Works? Okay.
There's also
And
not a
remember
lot
about
of,
that, Catherine?
yeah, there's also not a lot of activity in Fairfax.
They don't have
They do much less
They don't have
paving.
much money.
So-
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Anything in the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, here's a biggie. Consideration of authorizing the GM upon review and approval to execute a contract for Larkspur excavation and remediation project, 2000 Larkspur Main Circle, with ERRG Inc. in an amount not to exceed 8.81257 million. And to approve a sequel addendum for the Larkspur excavation and remediation project.
Very good. So we, concurrent with working on that other capital project, we issued a notice inviting bids for the Larkspur excavation remediation project, which has also been known as the remediation of polychlorinated biphenyls and at the former wastewater treatment site near our pump station tank, where we currently have our Larkspur land operations for about half of our staff. And so this has been an ongoing issue, as you all know, and we've had an update last month about some of the recent developments. I will say, after a couple of years, we've obtained US EPA approval of our plan to remediate the site, remove soils contaminated with PCBs that came from marine paint that was applied to the building at the former wastewater treatment site. And so we authorized a task order in December, I believe, working with Kennedy Jenks, Todd Miller of Kennedy Jenks this year, appreciate his support. At that time, to put together bid documents for bidding with the goal of constructing the remediation this summer. So we felt at the time the EPA approval was imminent. Well, there was a federal government shutdown around that time. And so there was a few other hiccups along the way, but we maintained working with EPA, and we finally, it took about 2.5 months, but in mid-March, we got that conditional approval over the finish line. Meanwhile, we were working in parallel for the bid documents, the plans and specifications. And the team pulled that together well in time for April 5th, notice inviting bids, for May 3rd bid open. And they did a good job because they're experienced in the soil remediation business, getting the word out to the different companies that are experienced doing this. And that was when you made that clear in your comments to me, that we really wanted to spread the news far and wide. So what the package before you has today is a summary of the bids that we received and opened on May 3rd, which was only a week and a half ago. So a lot of work that Kenny Jenks' team put in, and we put into looking at those 6 bids we received that were all responsive, and there was quite a range. The engineer's estimate, it came up from where you had heard in the 7 to 8 million range, perhaps in the last couple of years, looking at the previous general manager, and looking at the current bid climate, it was a higher bid. sorry, a higher engineer's estimate in the neighborhood of 10 million. But the bids did come in around 8 million, the base bid. And that extra amount on table 1 in the staff report, the additive bid items, I'll just highlight, are more of it's like a built-in contingency. If you can imagine, you know, about half of the 10-acre site is going to be taken up by this activity, maybe 2/3 by, you know. Fortunately, our operations are not over contaminated soils, okay? So we're, you know, that can continue, and the project's designed to continue our operations safely during this construction, which is estimated to take up to about Thanksgiving if everything goes according to plan. But, you know, we'll talk more about that. So the additive bid items have a built-in contingency of unforeseen conditions. And this may be an issue because of the EPA order. As we get to certain depths that they identified where, you know, our cores where we're doing sampling, they was a point of what they call refusals. We hit something like a rock or something interrupted our ability to penetrate the strata to get a sample. They're concerned that might represent something that could be contaminated. We don't think so because all the concrete was ground up into fine dust. But we're required to, as we get to certain depths, stop operations and sample and confirm that we don't have PCB levels above that which would have to go to a hazardous waste landfill. We estimate currently that the quantity of material that actually has to go to a hazardous waste landfill is quite small. It's on the order of 700 cubic yards, something like that. And as opposed to, we're moving 40,000 cubic yards. You know, and just a small fraction we estimate may trigger the need. And so we actually set that area aside and said, yeah, we'll take that. But we may have to do more. So there's contingencies in here based on sampling results if we have to do more and pay more to haul off material. That's just an example. So it's going to be it's going to require oversight, and next month we'll talk about the construction management that we need to do to make sure that we are in strict compliance with EPA order, because there is a risk that's pretty high if we're not careful that EPA would not, at the end of the day, issue a letter that the project has been completed in conformance with their conditional approval. That would be an outcome unacceptable to the district. So we have to be careful as we implement this that we're following every rule. So there's a pretty big contingency built in, and that's why, you know, the 10 million number is not unreasonable given the risks and the unknowns. But I will say that our characterization of the site, we have a lot of confidence in. There was a very detailed grid of sampling. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think only 3 samples out of dozens of samples were actually over a low threshold of 50 part per billion within the sediment of PCB. So there were no hot samples that were really hazardous. It was just right at the very edge of the lowest that requires being put in a hazardous waste landfill. So this full disclosure, you know, as far as some of the moving parts of what we're talking about. It was interesting, the bids we received were over a pretty widespread. Yeah. I think it reflected maybe, you know, just the contractors assign a certain amount of risk to some questions, and some of that is scheduled. You know, trying to get done before the wet season, moving all of this material, and then bringing in import fill that's clean and suitable that you can put on a schoolyard. You know, to make sure it's clean. And so, you know, we're going to be, the next step is to do the contractor submittals and figure out schedules. And a real important point, which I mentioned in the staff report, is that we have to get a grading permit from the city of Larkspur. And it's going well, I'll just say. Police have been helping me with it, and Todd's been working. Because, you know, Larkspur recognizes it's beneficial to the city to accomplish the remediation in a timely manner. And so they, within a week and a half of our application for the permit, they had detailed comments for us to respond to be able to be on their planning commission agenda. And I think we're in good shape. We'll find out at the end of this week, confirm that we're on the May 28th agenda. Oh, it is confirmed, thank you. So we will be going for the planning commission. And that's one step. And then when we get contractor submittals related to getting a grading permit, like erosion control plan, construction management plan, these things that we don't furnish, but the contractor does, we'll get that to the public works director, and we can secure the grading permit once those are approved. And that will be in the mid-June timeframe, I'm guessing. Gets us in a good position. In parallel, we're going to meet with EPA and the contractor around that time and confirm with EPA what we're doing is in accordance, strict accordance with their requirements, and get rolling. And we're still working out scheduling issues with the city of Larkspur. If we can do things like do some work on Saturdays, because the typical grading permit does not allow that. But this is no typical grading operation. The likes of which Larkspur hasn't seen and won't see again. So we're working with them to come up with some boundaries that they can live with, and we'll see where that goes. But it could influence the schedule. We don't want to risk a lot of wet weather work. And you heard with the discussions about the bond, about what's the time frame on coming to some decisions with community input on what happens after the remediation. The time frame on that is not, I would not call that urgent. That's a 2.5-year time frame. So, we're as this project unfolds, we have a goal of getting it done this year for everybody's benefit. But if it has to go into a second season, we'll let you know, and we'll let the public know as this process unfolds.
You're in the agenda packet, it mentions that the remediation costs will likely further increase. What's the amount? For example, now I do construction management, right? What else? I mean, it will likely increase because of things we are sure about.
What are you saying?
Oh, I think, well, yeah, I'd like to be able to add up how much is the project going to cost. We should add construction management in here. And
yeah, and that's actually in the budget later in the in today's package, because in that I have the construction management, the engineering services during construction.
Engineering during construction.
Yeah, so there's
oh, I see. Okay.
But what we
That's
don't know is the on-site sampling, is that going to mean we have to truck a lot more of it off the
Yeah, exactly. We don't know that.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We do know. We have an estimate on other numbers. Okay.
Yeah, I think also that statement that you're quoting.
It's on page 3 of the.
That analysis. I'm sorry if it was confusing. What I was trying to say is that there is a time element to, in my recommendation to award the bid, is that if we don't award the bid and we were to rebid this in the future, it's a high probability that remediation costs will only increase.
Oh, I see. And we got really good bids, I think. They're kind of in groups of 2. Did you notice? There's the 8 million, the 11.5 million, and the 14.5 million. That's quite a split.
Yeah, that was.
And you personally know the 2 low bidders, or you've worked with them?
I've worked with, a little bit with the second lowest bid. The first low bid company I've worked with quite a bit over the last 20 years.
So that's good, and it's been good.
They're an excellent firm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was struck that they had worked at Hunter's Point.
They've done quite a bit of work in the Bay Area out at there. They've worked up at Marin shipyard. They've worked, they've done a lot of federal work. So.
And I bring that up because that work involved some work in the bay. You know, and so doing copper dams and really a heightened scrutiny of that type of work. And so they're used to the scrutiny.
And this marine paint. Right? I mean, is that what's going on all over the place? Is this paint that we just found out?
Yeah, I mean, a portion of what we're remediating is that former marine painted concrete. You know, that's unfortunately at the bottom of the hole, in many cases, so.
That's right, but that's, with those military sites, it's a potpourri.
Yeah.
There's 100 point has some radioactive to it. So this is pretty low level. What we're dealing with is low level compared to a lot of other.
Another point is that if we know, we were talking to our bond people and they say he's going to have I think he said 8.9 or something million. But if it's 10 million, why don't we have 10 million? Let's get a good number.
I was listening to that, and I want to understand better what are the risks of underestimating or overestimating. Because, the base bid, if we don't have to exercise the contingency, is 8 million.
Oh, I see.
And then there's the other services, which then boosted up to 9 million or something. So what are the risks of underestimating the call amount or overestimating?
It has to be actual, right? You have to be actually used on the property?
So do you want to shoot high or low?
Yeah, I think what I would say is just like any other, you don't have a refunding option, right, anymore. So if you are putting the call at 10 million and you only actually have an $8 million project, then you've got a $2 million difference that you're going to have to carry, right, for the remainder of the bond term.
Well, we could, if we sell the property for more, we could call those bonds. It's our option to call them. If it saves us money, we could call them. But I think what we ought to do is, take the 8 and the construction estimate, and construction management estimate, and the engineering service rate, and at least get that much in there. And then I know that Sperry will calculate the cost, just like you asked, of an early call. What is the cost of an unused early call? And they can calculate that easily.
Yeah, that's exactly the question.
Okay, good. So we can follow up.
So we'd like it to call $10 million.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, we probably would have to call them. Ask that too. We may have to.
Right. And we can modify the package in June. We have it on the.
Definitely.
And so we'll get some advice on that when we have these more refined numbers. We just got.
That's not hard for that. Okay, any further?
We already know how we're going to pay for this. That was earlier.
That's it, yeah. Okay. Motion?
Move to authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute construction contract for Larkspur Excavation and Remediation Project, 2000 Larkspur Landing Circle, Larkspur, California, with ERRG Inc. in an amount not to exceed $8,802,587, and to approve the CEQA addendum for the Larkspur Excavation and Remediation Project.
Second?
I have to say about damn time, I said.
I would say.
No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to note one thing. Tonight we spent $14,815,897.
In one meeting.
In one meeting.
It's construction season.
There you go.
So much for pay as you go. Here's item 16 is consideration of accepting the current fiscal year budget. Now, we're not approving it, we're just going to accept it. Correct?
So we're just accepting the draft, we have a month to talk about it.
Yeah, we have a month to talk about it.
This is what we did last year.
Finance Committee went over it, had a number of comments. I think it's a really good job. It was done under force account with
That's right.
Melvin. Thank you.
I think, in terms of introductory, I would just note that this proposed budget is the first year of the 5 years that you've been contemplating in the last 2 board meetings. You know, as we've gone through the rate study, the preliminary rate hearing we had in March, and then using the rate model and refining it based on moving, turning some dials, looking at OPEB payback and pension payback, and coming up with a rate schedule. The numbers, the assumptions on capital and O&M within the 5-year study, what you see here is year 1. That what we took what your input and the assumptions of the rate model, but there are some changes here and there, and we also, so we did that. It reflects a year 1 of that analysis as a starting point. And then I wanted to let you know that, and Felicia helped organize these meetings with each department, each supervisor, as well as the managers of the capital side and the O&M side, and went line by line with each of these budget categories, looking at the last couple of years of expenses and tracking what those were, and also grouping and lumping categories that were kind of, there was some redundancy within departments, and kind of rolling it up to a higher level of organization. So that went into this as well. So we took the 5-year prism and we brought in a review of the last couple of years of expenses and asked questions about, do we need that? Is that, are we going to spend in this category at that level? And do we need to? And really critically evaluating all these budget categories to get to this point. So that went into this. And then I will note too, you talked a bit today about CMSA charges and the new revised budget there. Our payment to CMSA, I'm not going to get the percent exactly right, but it's lower. The increase each year, historically and going forward after this year, is around 3.9%, 3.5%, something like that. But for us this year, our increase is only about 0.5%, because there was a recalculation of flow and strength for calculating our fees for CMSA, not debt service, but just the fees, which are a big part of our expense pie, right?
Yep.
Third of it or something. So I believe that's one indicator of reflecting the success of a combination of our capital and repair programs, our lateral grant program. These things all add up to lower flow going through the treatment plant. And this year, in this budget, we see a couple $100,000 benefit.
And that should just keep going.
We hope,
If I can add just a,
Yeah,
if I can just add,
please do that.
I really want to give a lot of appreciation to Melvin, who spent a considerable amount of time putting these numbers together, and Catherine Hayden in particular for preparing a very well thought out and articulated capital project program in concert with the rate study that fed into this budget document, as well as for the first time this year, and if the board thinks it's worthwhile, I certainly do, the addition of the new CIP project sheets, which I'd like to draw your attention to because Catherine spent quite a bit of time producing those, preparing them and producing them for this year's budget. I think they're a great add to the budget document. I think it makes the CIP project program much more understandable to the public, which is part of what I think the purpose of a budget should be, is to really communicate to the public how we're spending our funds. And rather than just have, black and white lines of project names and dollar amounts, that these project sheets actually really describe the investments that we're making in our infrastructure in the Ross Valley Sanitary District. So thank you very much to you for doing that, and to Melvin for spending all the time with the numbers, and also to Stephen Mixis, who has a big part in the operating budget that Steve was just mentioning, and really looking line by line at all of our operating expenses and finding places where we can streamline and be more efficient. So.
Yeah, I was especially impressed by a page for each of our major projects.
Exactly.
A good summary
Yeah.
of the projects, and, I'm going to keep it. So, I don't know how much time you've had to review it.
No. That's why it's good that we get a draft budget and we talk about it at the next meeting.
Right, and I'm more than happy also, as we did last budget cycle, to offer staff up to be available to answer any questions that the board has about the draft budget over the next few weeks before we head into the June meeting. Finance Committee also, is a great resource for, questions, or we can convene again as the Finance Committee if you find that to be a useful exercise. I'm certainly, and I suspect you are as well, open to suggestions on how you'd like to proceed over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's what we did last year, wasn't it?
It is.
If board members or anybody had questions, get them into staff.
Right.
And then we can bring them back. It might be useful if you don't change anything. Because then we can, between now and then.
Which then? Final?
June.
Well, I'd like to entertain some edits, like we talked about the Finance Committee, but the numbers are pretty good. I mean, I would say we're in the 90 percentile of a final budget. There's not a whole lot of changes going to happen. Again, because we did all of that background, as Steve was just mentioning, with the rate study, we've looked at our revenue very closely, projected revenue very closely. We've looked at our expenses in terms of, especially for the CIP. We have our COLA, anticipated COLA already. The April COLA was published on May 10th, so we were able to. Thank you for it was 4%.
Which is the maximum.
Which is the maximum. So it was a full vote.
That's what I was saying.
So because we got those numbers on May 10th, and the board was generous enough to receive this draft budget on the following Monday, we actually were able to incorporate the 4% COLA. So there won't be any, that's in this budget. There won't be any modifications to.
Well, I had a really good chance to review it prior to the Finance Committee meeting. And I had comments, but the only change I had was on that table 3.
Right. So noted.
The final year, so
Yeah.
that can be changed. But,
Can I ask two little things? One was a whole lot of stuff, this is on page, Schedule 2, I guess. Page 3 of, I don't know what.
The schedules, the schedule
back.
section?
Yeah.
Which is after the project.
Miscellaneous is 28,471% up. I'm taking it, I'm just explaining, that's rolling up a lot of things into miscellaneous, or?
That's our
Please,
Comcast revenue, lease revenue.
Say it again?
That's our Comcast lease revenue.
Oh, Comcast lease. What line?
Oh, yeah, right here.
It's miscellaneous, $600,000.
Oh, page 3.
Okay, never had it before.
Oh, yeah, 28,000, right. That's
Perfect. And then.
Notice that is under revenue, not expense.
That is under revenue, not expenses, yeah.
And then low-income assistance program was 30,000 and now it's 0. Were we not having uptake on that?
Oh, no, we should have a.
You know what this, I think this is, and Julia might know. We're
that's right.
we're changing the way we're accounting for
That's right.
low-income rate assistance.
Mm.
Instead of issuing checks,
That's right.
which is what this last year is, next year, we're working directly with the county. So the county clerk on the tax roll has the 25% embedded, but stated, it will show on somebody's property tax bill, you've received the 25%. So they still get the savings, it just doesn't show up in this ledger.
Okay. Do we have a lot of uptake on that? I don't.
We have about 120 participants so far, and Julia's done a great job actually of additional outreach when she sees potential eligible ratepayers.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, we're really using the sewer rate study and process, which, per your direction, we issued the Prop 218 notices for the sewer rate increases around May 1st. And in the GM bulletin announcing that, I put in a paragraph about the low-income rate. That said, we're doing the sewer rate increases based on the study, but did you know this is available if your income is in this range, based on last year? So.
And it was picked up by Dave Domery in his city manager's bulletin, and so he retweeted, if you will, that paragraph about the low-income rate assistance. So it'd be great, it's great to see the city managers in our district also publish that information.
You know, we had some discussion about the amount of debt service and its impact on our rates. And if you look at page 16, which is the second to last page, right down to the bottom on line 61, net revenues is a ratio of annual debt service.
There we go.
And for the first year, it's 1.6, but then it troops right up, 181921, it's line 61.
Yeah.
And it gets up to 2.5, and anything approaching 2 is a very high quality, usually. That's why they're thinking our credit rate is going to go up. So it is a lot, but it's manageable.
And this doesn't have a sale of Larkspur Landing on it.
No, we're not counting that chicken. Well, it's that. So do we need a motion on this or anything, or we
Just to accept it.
I have a question. If you make changes, can you redline it then?
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I don't think you're going to have too many changes at all before our next meeting. Maybe after, right?
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I'll mention, in terms of transparency, that we have a category of other outside services, and last year it was around 1.6 million.
Yeah.
And this year we have it down around 940,000, so it's quite a bit lower.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be looking at that a little more closely, because we're right now going through work plan transition planning with Catherine Hayden moving on. And so I may need to look at that budget and make recommendations about outside services as a transition strategy. I don't know the answer to that yet, but just in full disclosure, that might be one category where I will have a refined estimate for you for the next fiscal year. So, there's moving parts. That's what the draft budget gives us some time to think about. Is that the right number? And,
That's fine.
I think we have public.
Do we need to vote on accepting it?
Public.
Yeah.
Question. Steve, what typically goes into that category of other outside services?
Yeah, I think some examples are communications and outreach. I think we have it, if you could point me to, we have a nice list of them here.
Well, I have them in mind.
But
Should be page 6.
sometimes the engineering services, though, can be in capital. So if we're doing a design, we aren't capturing that in outside services, even though it is consulting. Like Todd, who was here, that's part of the budget for the cleanup project. So
Was legal and human resources consultant?
yeah, right.
IT and accounting?
Yeah, IT. Yeah.
So these are normal categories, it's just, you couldn't predict them.
I could predict.
Well, when we prepared the draft budget, I don't know that we had fully thought through the transition work plan for Catherine's position, and because she did just recently give notice, but 60 days notice, which has given us some time to sort of figure out how we want to handle that workload. What Steve is suggesting is that if we want to handle it at least in an interim capacity with consultants, that's where that would affect this budget.
Right, but I'm not sure if it will. I'm putting everyone on note. We're going to take a hard look at it and see where it can fit in. But I'll also note, as I did before, we're proposing quite a cut in outside services this year compared to last. And there's reasons. There were reasons why, getting the website up and running. There are a lot of one-time expenditures. So we will have a lower budget. It's just a matter of, is it going to be that much lower?
Do we need to vote on accepting it?
I move to accept the draft budget.
Second.
That's me.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I'm going to vote no. I'm going to vote no because I received this late Monday afternoon. And I really can't accept a whole budget with millions and millions of dollars if I haven't been able to look through it thoroughly and carefully. So I am voting no.
You do understand,
Really
we're
need to
not,
get this into.
we're not accepting the budget. We're just saying we've received it,
No, it says acceptance.
Accepting the draft.
accepting the draft budget.
Accept the draft.
This is not, we talked about this in the finance committee. We're not accepting any of the numbers in here. We're just saying we say that we have received it. We acknowledge as a board that we have received this. And with staff, we will look at it over the
Why don't
next
we
month.
say received? And I'll vote
Why don't we
yes.
change your motion?
I'd move that we note that we received the draft fiscal year budget.
That's great.
Second.
Yes.
And that rescinds the previous. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 17A is the performance metrics. When in dry weather, our flow is 42%. And this is showing that in hot weather, it goes up to, wet weather goes up to 55. It was 55, wasn't it?
Does anybody remember that?
I think it was.
Steve?
53? I don't know.
Do we know what our flow was to CMSA during the high peak waters in the past 55? Was that hot?
Oh, you mean in past years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been that high.
I thought it was 55, but anyway.
Were we ever there?
I don't think so.
You installed some manholes, I see.
Yeah.
Repairs.
Well, yeah, two.
We
But
did
the
two.
localized pipeliner is still going good.
Yeah.
What's the highest one, was that 37 one month? Was it more than that? I don't remember.
Do we have in here how many feet or miles of laterals we've done?
We talked about that, and we
We
haven't.
used to do that every month, I haven't seen it. Do
No, we have a quarterly lateral.
It's quarterly?
Yeah.
And then, does that go towards the cease and desist order to help pay down our debt or whatever?
No, that's how we got on the
It doesn't?
NPDES permit.
But the lateral grant program was originally part of a
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
settlement agreement.
Yes.
It was part of
But
something
the old
originally.
one.
Yeah, but
Now
that,
we got the new one.
yeah, we complied with all of that and weren't any, well, the lateral ordinance that you guys adopted was part of the,
Yes.
of the cease and desist. So all the work that's being done that we're supporting the grant, it is tied in.
But they're not counting for
You're not,
They're not
you don't have to report on it. It's not a
Yeah. But,
continuing thing.
right, and that's a metric that, as we indicate, the performance of the overall program, it's something.
Yeah,
that
it'd
we
be
just-
interesting to correlate that.
It's a lot of miles of pipe,
Mm-hmm.
each year that go in.
So on the capital one, in 12B, you're going to be able to green in a lot more of these boxes.
Yes,
Which
right.
means they're under construction.
Yep. Lot of green.
Any comments?
Nope, it all looks great, thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.